Everybody hear me okay on the audio? Cool, okay. All right, correction. I'm going to be talking about correction in general, and I'm going to be asking you lots and lots of questions. Hi. I'm going to be asking you lots and lots of questions, so please be at the ready in the chat box. Are you ready to do lots of writing and lots of answering? No one answers, of course. Good, okay. And later you're going to need a pen and paper, but I'll give you a little bit of time later on. So correction. And just to clarify, everything that I'm going to be talking about is in the context of oral production of students, because of course written correction is a totally different topic, and in 10 minutes you can hardly do justice to oral correction, let alone written correction, okay? So the context of this is oral correction of students' oral production. So question number one, let's move the slides if I can. Question number one for you to answer in the chat box. What factors do we need to consider when correcting students' oral production? For example, when to provide the correction? What else should we take into account? Anybody want to say anything? Their ego, yeah. So on the spot, yeah, so that's of course when. Tone of voice when providing it, that's so interesting because people like me are very, very sarcastic, and we can upset people sometimes. Very important. Anything else? Do learners want to be corrected? That's so interesting. When would a learner not want to be corrected? That's interesting. Let's get one more good idea. Reformulating subtly, that's again so interesting. What would be subtle reformulation? Because the whole point is that it would be clear, wouldn't it, and unmistakable. All right. So, obvious things like when to provide the correction, what kind of correction to provide, how to do it, and what to select. These are some of the key factors. So, moving on, I want to draw a huge difference between correction and feedback. So, my next question for you is, what do you think is the difference? Again, just in the context of oral production, what's the difference between giving students feedback and giving them correction? Chat box answers, please. Feedback is great, yeah, but what's the difference? Very good, content feedback always first, to show, or at least give the impression that you're listening. What else? The performance, what does that mean? Feedback's delayed, the mistake was made, that's interesting. Does feedback have to be delayed? That's interesting, it's all about subjectivity of perception. One more good idea. Feedback is good and bad. Ailey, if you're referring to giving feedback on good points and bad points of what the students have said, then I absolutely agree, and that's something that I'm coming to later on. Thank you for your very good ideas. Let's continue. I said that feedback on students' oral production is not only about picking up the linguistic errors and correcting them, which is an essential and relatively easy part of our job, but as somebody mentioned also, giving time, space and value to content feedback, actually talking to the students about what they said. This for me relates a little bit to what the lady said earlier on, I can't remember her name, who was talking about getting on the right side of teens. So basically showing that you have listened, well, obviously with all students, not just teens, but adults and kids and all students, showing that you've actually listened and talking about stuff, and not necessarily wanting to become their friend or any of the rest of that, but just showing that you've listened. And of course, number 2 and number 3, not only focusing on students' errors and correcting them, but highlighting, praising, sharing good language. So you hear something good, you write it down, or you just immediately correct it, and you share that student's excellent piece of language, makes them feel good, and students can learn from each other, not just from you. And of course the last one, which is one that's easy to forget about, which is picking up on and upgrading language. So maybe the students are saying something which is okay, but they're not stretching themselves, they're producing within themselves, within their limits, and that's something that they slip into, and we can also slip into the habit of not correcting, and it's tiring and it's quite demanding to constantly be alert about what is not only wrong, but what is also okay but could be improved, appropriate to the level, of course. So we've talked about timing as one of the key things. Let's move on. The timing of feedback is commonly known as hot and cold feedback. So can anyone answer the first question on my slide, which is what's the difference between hot and cold feedback? Anyone answer that? Waiting. Temperature, very good. Thank you. It all boils down to the temperature. Very good. Hot feedback is immediate, of course. Yes. Anyone for cold feedback? Cold feedback is dilated. Very good. I think you mean delayed. Thank you. Yeah, very, very good. Hot feedback is immediate and cold feedback is delayed. Let's have a look. Second question is really interesting. When would you choose? So anyone, when would you make the deliberate decision to provide hot feedback, which of course would involve interrupting the student? When would you do that? Why would you do that? Waiting. Exactly, precisely. They make a mistake in the target language. Yeah, anything else? Yes, it's all about fluency or accuracy. So in that, with respect to that, when would you use hot feedback? If the aim is fossilized mistakes, accuracy, yeah, very good. And what about, without just stating the opposite, when would you go for cold feedback? Without trying to avoid just stating the opposite. Anyone? After exam tasks, that's very good. Excellent idea, because of course in an exam, you're not going to get interrupted, no matter how much they mess it up. Yep, of course, when as Leanne has said, when the priority is, well, free practice and presumably fluency. One more. There you are. There's an interesting one from Carl. Cold feedback for language problems that are shared by the whole class or a large number of students. That's a really good idea. And as Emma said, for upgrade, because upgrading at the moment of the mistake is quite hard, and it's something the students might not pick up on. Next slide is going to give you some of my ideas. For me, hot feedback, which of course involves interrupting the speaker and can put students off, occurs if, as people have said, the error of the target language being studied is made. Well, there's a serious error that's maybe not part of the target language, and of course that's very subjective. What's serious enough to actually interrupt a student? And as Emma was talking about previously with pronunciation in the lingua franca core, if understanding is impeded, you might want to stop them because you've lost the train of what they're saying. So all this would require hot feedback. The student would have to be interrupted. Cold feedback, as people have said, again, your ideas were great. When fluency is the priority over accuracy, you would wait, you would note things down, you would let them talk. Give them a chance to self-correct as well, which is obviously a wonderful thing when students can correct themselves. Secondly, as someone said, if there's a serious mistake which might need serious focus, like, I don't know, a tense mistake, that of course will need some cold correction afterwards. And finally, the thing that I said we often forget about, which is the sharing of excellent language, which you've heard, or upgrading, that should have its own time and spot in the lesson after the activity is finished, so that you can share and praise, and you can also give them time to come up with better alternatives for the language which they said, which was adequate but not perhaps good enough for their level. I'm going to give you now 3 common techniques of hot correction, so things you would do interrupting the speaker. And I just want you to write in the box what type of mistake you think this technique of interruption and hot feedback could be used for. So there we are. When or for what type of error would you use the following hot feedback techniques? Finger prompts. So there's all this kind of stuff. When would you do that? Anyone in the chat box? Very good. Missing word. So you put your fingers up or down depending on what's been missed or not. Contraction's very good. All right, let's move on. What about echoing? You repeat what the student has said with optional sarcasm, which refers to what someone said earlier about you've got to be careful about how you correct and with the tone of your voice. And of course, echoing generally is prohibited from the teacher's point of view, but error echoing with optional sarcasm. Yep, very good. Pitch, of course. Yeah. Anything else? Anything else? Sarcasm is not optional in my classroom. That's interesting. I'd love to know why. That's very interesting. I'd love to know why. He or she confusion. Yeah, so minor errors, people seem to be saying. Let's move on to the last one, hot correction, which is directly reformulating what the student was trying to say. They say he go, and you say goes. You don't even give them a chance to correct themselves, you just directly formulated what they were trying to say. When would you choose to do that? False friends. Yep, interesting. When it's target language, that's interesting. Depends what it is, doesn't it? Because as we said, if it's a serious big point, that might require a lot of interrupting and might require proper focus afterwards, but it depends. And time pressure, yes. Time pressure, so they've made a mistake. There's no time to maybe go into it for 20 minutes afterwards. And maybe we think that they know the answer anyway, so we just give it to them. Perhaps if what they're trying to say is above their language level. That's a really good idea from Lottie Harrison. You might note that down, and you might talk about afterwards about them being ambitious and stretching themselves, as I mentioned, but not trying to say things they're not yet capable of. All right, very, very good. As a final part of this talk, we're going to be listening to an audio which a kind colleague of mine called Sheila from Australia recorded for me. It's a B1 level student, so roughly intermediate level student, lower to mid-intermediate, talking about their future holiday plans. And we're going to listen to the student, and it lasts 1 minute, as you can now see. You need a pen and paper, by the way. And the question is, from this 1 minute of audio, what would you pick up on as mistakes that need to be corrected? What would you pick up on as excellent language to be commended and shared with her classmates? And what would you note as language which is adequate for the level, but could be upgraded or improved, appropriate to this level, which I will repeat is B1. I'll give you a few seconds to get a pen and paper, and then I'll hope one of the DJs will play the audio. Just a few seconds. Give instructions.
Where are you going to go on your next holiday?
I think that I'm going to Paris to visit my cousins that are living there because they are in a new university. It's called La Sorbona. I don't know if you know it, but it's a very good university. My cousin came here and studied, so we are so grateful. He speaks very good French, so we learn with him, so we know how to speak a little bit. So we are going to go to Paris, then we are going to go to Spain, to Madrid and Barcelona, and I think anything more. Then we came to Argentina again. Perfect.
That's it. I'll give you a few seconds to gather your thoughts and write down anything you might have just remembered. And then I'll invite you to put in the box anything in those three categories. What would you upgrade? What would you share because it's excellent? And what would you correct? What was the question, Jordana? The aspects of that language which you would correct, which you would share because they're very, very good, or which you would tell the students are okay but could be upgraded. I'm going to give you in a minute my version, but would anybody like to put anything in the box? Yeah, came and went, so idea of going to a place but coming from a place. Yeah, from Emma, the S of speaks, typical one. That might be, of course, one for hot correction, the super S as it's so called. I'd praise the contractions. Yeah, because it was an informal topic and they spoke with an informal style. Good linking devices. Any examples of the good linking devices from Hannah? What were the questions? Oh dear. Yeah, the anything more, nothing else. That's in Argentina. That's Spanglish. They're translating directly from Spanish. Can anyone tell me what linking devices? Yep. And then just the chronological linking devices. Anything else? She said, yeah, cousins. Yeah. She said cousins. I think she said, didn't she? Which is that an error? With again going back to Emma's thing of pronunciation and link core and impeding meaning. Probably didn't impede our understanding of what she was saying. Just a few more seconds before I reveal to you what I picked out. I've noticed. I don't remember her saying that. All right. So coming to the end of the talk, I haven't been timing it. I've got a feeling it's been a little bit short, but I'm not honestly sure. I'm going to now, on the final slide, penultimate slide, show you what I picked up on, and feel free to make any comments. So did you pick up on the same stuff? Did you pick up on things that I didn't? Do you think I'm too strict, too lenient? Have a few seconds to have a look at this. And any comments, please, in the chat box. Rodana, I can hear you. I can hear you. What do people think? Oh dear. What do people think? Is anyone going to actually write anything? Just a few more seconds. Nothing, I suppose. Thanks for that. It's very useful. Any other comments about my corrections compared to yours? Perhaps not for Romance language speakers, but for senior language speakers, those pronunciation issues would really interfere with corruption. That's really interesting, isn't it? How the different language and pronunciation errors could be more or less comprehensible to different people with different L1s, and also teachers who maybe have a knowledge of their students' language and may be aware of what mistakes they make for that reason. Oh, if that wasn't clear, I'm very sorry. X means it was a mistake. Plus means it was good and to share. And whatever the other symbol is means it was okay but could be improved. The 0. Sorry if that wasn't clear. Would it be overwhelming to correct and add Lexis upgrade? Well, that's so interesting. That's precisely what we're getting at. I don't think it would be overwhelming, but obviously, this is from Alice Toribio. Obviously, you need to pick up on and upgrade appropriately. You're not going to crucify a beginner student for not using the third conditional. Any final comments? Yeah, Carl, thank you for that. I think it's really important to give positive praise and sharing. Students feel good, and they kind of compete to get praise next, which I think is really good. But judicial use of praise, judicial is Emma Gowing at Buenos Aires' favorite word. Judicial use of praise, so not just praising anything nilly-willy, also one of her favorite phrases, just for the sake of it, but praising judiciously, therefore it retains value. When would you make those corrections? Well, that is cold and calculated, as my title shows. That's a lot of correction. It was a lot. Could you feasibly do that in a minute? I'm not sure, but that's what I did from listening to it at various times. Nilly-willy, what did I? That's basically it. I haven't timed myself. It feels okay, and we're running behind schedule anyway, so we're going to finish off by just thinking, what if? What if we did things differently? What if we provided feedback instead of content? And there it is, my patented, soon-to-be patented slogan, which is intelligent feedback, which is encompassing all the things I've just mentioned. That's it. Any final comments? Now's the time. What should come first, praising or correcting? That's so interesting. Why would you... you mean for different language points, praising and correcting? That's a very good point. Does it make any difference? We tend to finish with a positive, don't we? We get the bad stuff over and done with and then finish with the positive. That might suggest praising comes second, but that's really interesting. Anything else? Shit. Very funny, got no idea what you're talking about, but very funny. Get them on board for the correction after. Okay. Alright, well I'm done and dusted, so that's all from me. Good to see you. Good to hear from you, Jordana. Thank you. Shame you're married, but what can you do?
Thank you, Danny.
Good.